Hey everybody, Kate Richburg here, and here's the second part of my series on creating these Fiesta-like earrings in my Kate Richburg signature style. And I wanted to talk about kind of the order of operations for soldering a piece like this. When you're tackling a piece like this that has a lot of different components, it's a good idea to lay everything out, see how it fits, and start to think about the order in which you're going to solder. So I'm going to move this guy over here and this one, all these little bits over here, and I'm going to start with this pancake die. This is going to be the base of the earring. And then this skull solderable element here is going to go right on the top of that. That's where that's going to go. And so I also have some other little flowers and things that are going to happen. But you want to start by thinking about the largest piece to the smallest piece. So this is by far the biggest piece that's going to go on this one here. And I want to make sure I've got some wet dry sandpaper here. This is a 600 grit. You can find it in the automotive store, or sometimes an Ace Hardware will also have this. And what you're going to do is you really want to make sure to file this so it's nice and flush. And I've been working on this earlier today, and you can see from the back, let me turn this over so you can see it, how there's a nice lip around this piece here. And so that's kind of the element that everything else is going to kind of take their position from. I also have some smaller elements that are going to go on these pieces, as well as this concho. Both this concho and this skull die are from die maker Jim Brandvik, and the rest, this peacock die and some of these other elements, are from Kevin Potter over at Potter USA. And so this little flower piece is going to go on the top there. So let me just show you how this is all going to be laid out. And again, this has been filed nice and flush. So when I fit it to the die, and I like using these little tweezers, when I fit everything together, I can see that there's no gaps, because do remember, solder does not flow to fill a gap in the metal. Okay, so everything you do needs to be flush. Now, the skull does have some dimension. It has a couple of tiny little vent holes here where the connection isn't completely flush, but that's okay with me, because instead of having to drill a hole through the back plate, I'm gonna go ahead and leave those two little spaces there and there where the skull isn't completely flush to the back plate, and I'm going to use that as my venting holes for when it's soldering. I also have some other decorations, some small solderable elements here. This little paloma right there, and then another which is going to go right here. And then I've got some flowers that are going to go up there. And inside those flowers, I'm going to put in some bezel cups because I'm going to set some stones in there. Okay. Then I have a flower from one of the eyes of the skull. And I have another garnet here. In this case, it's a faceted rose cut garnet that's going to go in that little bezel cup. Okay, so these are going to be all of the little, whoops, that little granule came right out of there. Let me grab it again. That's why I like these tweezers I'm using are a very fine tweezer from Tronex. I like them a lot to help me kind of place my little elements. Then later on, I'm going to add some dangles here, and that's going to be, I'm probably going to put a hole in the bottom of these and maybe make a loop or something on the top of these, or I might drill a hole in here. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to attach them yet, but I don't need to worry about that part. All I know is that this bottom peacock kind of die is going to have holes. So I don't need to worry about soldering it. But these little dangles, we'll see how I'm going to connect. So looking at this piece, I need to think about the order that I'm going to solder everything in. And I forgot that little bezel cup. That's going to be a lapis, also a rose cut lapis like that. Okay. Then later I'm going to probably put a hole in this and make an ear wire that has a setting for this little coral rose. So they're very Frida-like, very Fiesta, very festive, very Dia de los Muertos. It's a signature style that I like to play around with. So now I need to really think about the order of operations for soldering, okay? The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach this skull to the back plate, and I'm gonna use hard solder for that because this skull needs to be probably heated and reheated as I add these other elements here, okay? Next, what I'll do after this is soldered with hard solder, I'll come in and I will do a first round of soldering a bunch of these little elements. I will probably add this guy here, and these flowers, this little flower crown. I'm kind of moving them back and forth so you can see which ones I'm using, so it'll be easy to see kind of what's left. That one there, or actually the fit of this concho is pretty important. So I'm actually going to take that back and say that here and here, because this connection is going to be heated and reheated again, that I'm probably going to do these both at the same time. Hard solder at this join and hard solder at this join. What I did for this peacock die, I left part of the flange on it from the pancake die, and that acts as a little tab that I can connect that concho to right there. So these will be my elements with hard solder. Okay, so I'll put that one back. There and there. Now, I needed this concho in place before I added this little flower crown. So the flower crown can probably go next, along with those two flowers. That can be done with medium right here. Sorry, my hand was in the way. That can be done with medium here. Then I will probably do the palomas there and there. Come over here. There we go. And the bezel cup and the flower with easy. What I also need to do to pre-prepare these flowers is I need to solder the bezel cups in the flowers with hard solder. I'll do that too. And then when I attach these, they'll already have the bezel cup in, and that'll be done with medium. And then we'll go here to easy, and I'll probably do all of these at the same time. I used paste solder a lot for these types of things because I like the ease of paste solder. You really do need to control the amount of paste solder that you use, however, because we don't want that paste solder sliding all over this piece, and paste solder can get messy. I also will probably paint some of this, like this top part up here, after I've soldered it. I'll paint it with some yellow ochre that will help my solder resist from heating and flowing, just as a little extra insurance when I go ahead and solder these easy elements here. So that's how I start to figure out the order of operations. And you can see I kind of go back and forth, and really get a solid lineup for how all of these are going to go. Because once they go on the torch, there's no looking back with it. All right, next we're going to go on to soldering, and I'll share some of my tips about soldering these elements when I see you guys next time. Thanks so much.